This is a crested gecko, and for many people, including myself, this is going to be the first reptile that you guys attempt to breed. And although crested geckos are an easier species of reptile to breed, there are definitely some things I think you guys should know before attempting to breed the crested gecko. That's exactly what we are going to be doing today, talking about some things that you guys need to know about the crested gecko before attempting a breeding project of your very own. So stick around, we're going to be having a bunch of great tips and tricks, and subscribe if you're new. I'd love to have you around. Let's get into it. And kicking things off, let's start with tip number 5, which is going to be choosing quality over quantity. When it comes to breeding geckos, there is a little bit of a double-edged sword of the crested gecko, and that's going to be the fact that they're very easy to breed. It makes it a lot easier on the keeper, especially if they're starting a first-year breeding project, just getting into it. There is no better species than do it with crested geckos because it's really just put two geckos together and then boom, you get eggs and get babies. It's not very difficult. And that's kind of the pro and the con at the same time. Because this animal is so easy to breed, that means a lot of people are doing it. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Crested geckos, in my opinion, have to be the third most bred reptile out there, which means when you're talking about breeding and trying to sell babies, that is a lot of competition. Now, times have changed when it comes to breeding reptiles. The days of making a bunch of animals, as many as you possibly can, and then selling them to Petco for $20 a pop, those days are pretty much over. And when it really comes down to it, what you really want to have is a quality animal versus a lot of that animal. Now, honestly, guys, this is a mistake I personally made when I first started. We can take Pebbles, for example. Pebbles is one of the oldest breeders over here at Dakota Blue Exotics. And not to say anything mean about her, I mean, she's a very pretty gecko, but when it comes down to the facts, right, as a Dalmatian, not that many spots, maybe 20 to 30. As a crested gecko itself, very bad head structure. You're getting that kite-shaped head that we really don't want to see. It's kind of going in the opposite direction. We really want to see more floppy crested heads for these animals, which all in all, I would really get her as a pretty mediocre gecko. I'm sorry, Pebbles. I apologize. I think you're beautiful. Just the public doesn't. What I mean by quality, it can be a little bit dependent. It varies depending on what trait you're getting. You know, having a tricolor is going to be a lot different in quality versus what a super Dalmatian would look like. The number one, as a general sense, is going to be head structure. We really want to see a more floppy crest, a bigger crest. As time is going on with these guys, including some inbreeding stuff, line breeding, and just generational breeding, looking more about the color patterns than the actual structure of the animal, we're getting shorter animals, thicker animals, and animals with, you know, not much crest. I mean, you're a crested gecko. Look at that thing. Pathetic. When you're looking for a quality animal to breed, you're going to want something with a nice head structure. You're going to want something with whichever trait you're towing it is going to be exacerbated, better looking. If you're looking for a pinstripe, you want full pins. If you're looking for a tricolor, you want 3 of those nice, amazing colors. That dark base, that orange for the Harlequin, and then the white that then makes it a tricolor. If you're looking for something like a super Dalmatian, you are gonna want a Dalmatian with a lot of spots, or at least that has really good lineage to show that at least his parents had a lot of spots. At the end of the day, when it comes to these guys, there are just so many geckos being produced. You wanna make sure that you're not adding to the problems with crested geckos, these bad structured animals, these animals that are kind of like poor quality in the eyes of crested gecko breeders. What you want to do is be providing quality animals with great structure and great trait of visual. It looks nice. Make good, nice looking animals. I guess that summarizes it. Moving on, this is going to be a tip that I ignored for so many years, and I'm really shooting myself in the foot with this one. I'm really getting back on my track with this kind of thing, and well, let's just talk about it. That's going to be number 4, lineage does matter with crested geckos. I know, I've said for years, just lineage, schminiage. We don't need lineage for these animals, just make good looking animals. I have since then refuted that claim. I do think lineage does play a little bit of an important part, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Number 1, the baby doesn't necessarily show what the parents are, right? We can take one of my geckos, Sprinkles, for example. She is a gecko that does not have very many spots. Out of the egg, had like 2, and now as an adult, like 15, maybe, a very not spotty animal. However, pairing her with a good male and the lineage that gecko has behind her makes absolutely fantastic babies. Plenty of spotted animals, very spotty animals, which just goes to prove that looks aren't everything. Don't judge a book by its cover, and having proper lineage is not only going to give you a better idea of what that animal is going to look like, it's also going to increase the value of this animal. While we get more and more breeders, more hobbyist people, you know, backyard breeders, whatever you want to call them, you get people that are just kind of doing it as a fun little project, not really paying attention too much of the lineage. It's not only a great way to keep track of your breeding stuff, but also to set yourself apart from the other person. You're the guy that takes the proper steps to have a little bit extra care for the animal. You know what the parents are, what the grandparents are. That is going to increase the value of the animal right there. At the end of the day, while lineage is not as important as certain species, making sure we keep those locality bloodlines pure, it does play a part, and it's kind of cool. It's like a family tree, right? It's really cool even to see some of my projects going from those F1 to F2 of Dakota Blue Exotics lines, seeing like, oh, well, this one made from this parent to this parent, which then made from that grandparent to that grandparent. It's like a family tree. I think it's pretty cool, and it's definitely something you should pay attention to if you're serious about breeding crested geckos. Real quick, before we get into the next topic, I just want to give a huge thanks to today's video sponsor, Fallow. And now with National Polar Bear Day being just a couple of weeks past, Fallow is very excited to unveil their new polar bear bracelet. If you guys are unfamiliar with Fallow, I'll summarize it real quick for you. When you purchase from Fallow, you are getting 3 things. You're getting the good-hearted feeling of donating to animal conservation, making sure to keep our wildlife still in the wild and persevering and such. Number 2, you're getting a rad bracelet. Check this thing out. Very cool, very awesome. But to set Fallow apart from the other guys, you get one more thing, and that's gonna be this card right here. Well, at least a card something like this. Mine is Cloud. Cloud is a 3-year-old subadult polar bear that with this little QR code right here, going on Fallow's website, I am able to track the polar bear where it's going. What more could you possibly want? You get a nice accessory to make yourself look cool. You get hours of fun of watching a polar bear, whatever animal you choose. They have a multiple variety of stuff. Walk around in its native environment. And then number 3, you get that good-hearted feeling of knowing you're buying from a company that supports local wildlife and wildlife conservation. If any of you guys are interested in getting a Fallow bracelet of your own, make sure to go down to the link down there in the description to the site. There's a code you can use there to save some money. Thank you guys so much. All right, back to the video. Moving on, let's get into what I think is a harsh reality to new breeders, and it's something you definitely need to keep in mind, and that is going to be number 3, you're not gonna sell as well as you think you are. As we stated a little bit before, a lot of people breed crested geckos, and I mean a lot. And in those categories of a lot of people, there are a lot of people doing it full time that have a lot more money, a lot more nicer geckos, and a lot more availability and social media reach. You're a new guy coming in, you don't probably have much of a following, you know, your geckos might be nice, they might not be that nice. Again, step 1, quality over quantity. And at the end of the day, you're gonna have to push through that giant wave of people that are also competing and selling their crested geckos. What I mean by this tip is it is not by any means a What are you looking at? You trying to jump away from me? You stay right there, Pebbles. You're the co-star of the show. What I mean by this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not, you put 2 geckos together, you get eggs, and then boom, you are rolling in dough. You made millions breeding geckos like this right here. That's not gonna be the case. Unfortunately, at least for the first couple of years, you're gonna be struggling to even sell 1 animal. So that's what my personal experience was. My first year, I sold 1 animal and then had to keep the rest behind until I was able to sell them through that 2-year to 3-year mark. Maybe you guys will get lucky and you'll just shoot out all these geckos and sell them all and then you're good to go. But for the most part, the reality is it's not going to be as easy as that. What does that exactly mean for the breeder? Where are those geckos going to go? Do you have enough space for those animals? Do you have enough equipment to house all of those animals? And that's going to bring us to one of our last tips, and that's going to be number 2, being prepared if that happens. Like I said, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You're not going to be just throwing these things out like sliced bread and everyone's going to be grabbing them. You might have to hold on to them for a little bit, which is why it is always great to be prepared if this happens. What do I mean by get prepared? Well, I mean a couple of things. Number 1, having the proper equipment and everything you're going to be needing. Crested geckos, anywhere from, well, 1 gecko pretty much anywhere can lay anywhere from 10 to 14 babies through that breeding season, which means you need 14 tubs, you need 14 little decorations to put in there, 14 sets of that substrate, whether you're doing paper towels or a loose substrate, anything of that matter, 14 cups to feed those animals. Maybe you'll need upgraded bins, going from those shoebox bins to those 20 quarts if you're using bins, making sure that the animal has everything it's going to need and that you have enough room to make sure that even if these things are babies right now, you might need to hold on to them at least till they're adults. Now, there is no worse feeling than being ill-prepared in this scenario. If you're going to be keeping 15, 20-gram babies still in those shoebox bins because you don't have an upgraded space for it, or because you don't have the room for it, you can only keep these animals in these shoebox bins. If that's the case, maybe it's a project that you should hold off for until you have the proper stuff and you're ready for it. The last thing you want want to do is be doing wrong from babies you produced and had a good intention for it, but now are neglecting. In my opinion, there is no more of a special feeling than being able to care for babies that were brought into this world by you, that you were the reason. You are God to these animals. You put the geckos together, you waited on those eggs and incubated them, and now you got these little tiny babies that are alive because of you. It is an absolute amazing feeling. But with that feeling comes the responsibility. You want to make sure you're... Are you gonna jump? End of the day, you want to make sure you're providing good husbandry and have the availability and the necessity to be able to provide that for the animals. And if that's not the case, maybe wait a little bit longer until you're able. Moving on to the last tip of the day. This is going to be one that I think is super important and not enough people are taking very seriously. And that tip is going to be number 1, get on social media, people. Year is 2023, my folks, or at least it's 2023 when I made this video, and that means social media is king. We're not in the Stone Ages where we're using newspaper ads to sell these animals. Everyone is looking on the big 3, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, I guess maybe like Twitter. I heard like Pinterest is doing it. The bottom line is, if you want to sell animals, you gotta get on social media. Now, as a new breeder, if you really want to make your mark, you want to stand out from the crowd and be better, take it seriously. I can't tell you how many accounts, how much people have taken this advice just kind of at face value. They're like, oh, well, I'll make a Facebook and an Instagram. And then it's just like a bunch of like, click, okay, there's my picture, I posted it, good to go. I mean, yeah, I guess you did it, but did you really? Make sure you're on social media and providing just like quality animals, quality content, great little short videos, great pictures. Just taking the extra 5 minutes, really. Learn a little bit about the algorithm. Make sure you kind of have an understanding of how these social media sites work and post good stuff. And boom, you're gonna have a lot easier of a time selling these animals. I cannot tell you, I still remember the day when I was still a nobody, 20 subscribers on YouTube, and just like a couple followers on each of those sites, not being able to sell any babies, to then the next year at least having a couple hundred, and just every year it getting a little bit easier as my social media reach climbs. The day, social media is king. If you are not utilizing these platforms in order to better your business or better your projects, being able to sell these animals, then you're being dumb. I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, you're missing out on so much stuff by not doing it. There you got it, boys and girls. 5 quick tips on tricks on how to breed or breeding crested geckos. What'd you think about this? Do you think any of these tips are something you maybe not have thought about? Maybe these tips helped you out. Let me know in the comments section. And as always, boys and girls, if you like the content over here on YouTube or appreciate myself as a creator, make sure to check out some of the links we have in the description, including Patreon. It's a great way to support the channel, making sure that we can keep doing what we love. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time of your day to follow us over here at Dakota Blue Exotics. I will see you next time, but until then, goodbye.